Hey guys, welcome back. I am Brandon Lynette, and this is Faith and Fire, God and Country, the show where I talk about the shit that actually matters. We ground every single one of the things that I research or that I'm questioning. I back that up in scripture, and I'm not going to pretend that the world makes sense when it doesn't because it doesn't. If you're new here, you guys, welcome. Please pull up a chair. This is not background noise content. Okay, this is definitely step forward, engage your brain. I want this to be a show that inspires you to ask questions, to inspire you to have conversations. Quick things before I go too far. Super Patch, y'all know that's my jam. Number one on the docket, y'all, and this is my husband's go-to. Actually, just patch him up before work. He had debilitating back pain and used to. We tried everything. We've gone through everything with him, and nothing ever touched the pain until we found these. So I put these on him every single day. Liberty and freedom. If you have chronic pain, if you have inflammation, you feel like your body is just in this constant low grade war with itself and it doesn't feel good and it aches, go to brandonlynette.com, superpatch, brandonlynette.superpatch.com. I always mess that up. That's incredible. It's in my show notes if you can't find it. But you guys, this is zero ingredients. You know how I feel about big pharma. We are anti pharma, anti medication, anti quick fixes. This is zero ingredients. That means it is safe for everybody, everybody's body. I could put these on a baby and we're good to go. I could put them on your grandma and she's you're not even going to recognize who she is for that fact. Um, but this is all frequency based wellness patches. No drugs, no weird ingredients. Just please check it out. It is braille for your brain. That's the easiest way I could put what these patches do. If you guys have not checked out my flagship show, the Listen Bitch podcast, I feel like it is a great support for this show. I run Faith and Fire 2 days a week. Listen Bitch is 4 days a week. And I feel like it just supports everything I talk about here by helping you rebel against the systems, by helping you kind of unplug from the matrix and to wake up and to take massive responsibility for your life and to get into your potential no matter what the hell's going on in the world. Okay, over 500 episodes of me saying stuff out loud that everyone is thinking. You can find it wherever you listen bitch podcast. You'll know immediately if I'm your people. Okay, and I'm just going to say, I don't know that I really need a trigger warning, but this is not a safe space. This show exists specifically because comfortable is dangerous. I love you, but I'm not going to manage your feelings. I am going to tell you the truth in love and then trust you to handle it. If you can't, that is a you problem. That is a you problem. And I want to start in a place where I don't see any of these podcasters really tackling. Most of the time when people are doing any kind of like political commentary or we're talking about stuff, and I know I'm one of these people, we spend all of our energy on the federal stuff, right? Everyone's talking about presidential decisions, congressional chaos, Supreme Courts. And look, that stuff matters. I talk about it here. I'm not telling you to stop paying attention to Washington, but I need to tell you something that changed the way I think about where power actually lives in this country. It lives at the state level. And right now, while everyone is watching the presidential chess match, your state legislature is quietly rewriting the rules of your life, of your children's life, of your vote, your digital identity. And most people have no idea. So I'm going to walk you through what's happening right now. I can't find it on mainstream media. No one's talking about it. Why? Well, because they like it better that way when you're just a useful idiot and you have no idea what's really going on because you can't use your voice. Because some of this is going to make you want to call your state rep. Some of it's going to make you want to pull your kids off the internet entirely. And some of it's going to make you realize that the solutions being offered to real problems might be a bigger threat than the problems themselves. So I'm going to start at home because y'all, I'm in Michigan right now, uh, which I'm in Michigan. Okay. I have no option to leave right now. There's no possible way, but I'm here. And Michigan just did something. They're always up to something. Michigan lawmakers passed what they're calling the Kids Over Clicks package. This package is a set of bills aimed at restricting algorithmically addictive feeds for minors, tightening the online safety rules, and limiting children's access to AI chatbots. Listen to me. That's dreamy, right? Like we want that protection for our kids. I don't disagree with the intent of this at all. This needs to happen. The algorithm problem with children is real. And I have 6 kids. I understand viscerally what it looks like when a kid gets caught in an engagement loop designed by engineers to keep them dopamine spiking for as long as possible. That's not a conspiracy theory. I'm not making that up. That's documented and it's admitted as a business model. I've poured the truth out of that. So I understand the impulse. I do. This is where I need you to slow down with me because the solution they're proposing, and I feel like I'm yelling already. Already, we're not even in the show yet, and I'm already yelling. And Michigan's not alone. This is happening at a federal level too. The solution involves age verification, which means platforms would need to know how old you are, which means platforms need to verify your identity, which means the anonymous internet is starting to disappear. And that's a very different conversation. There's a federal bill circulating right now called the Parents Decide Act. It would require device operating systems, like meaning Apple, Google, the people who run the operating system on your phone. They have to verify the age of users and potentially require parental verification for any minor accessing these certain platforms or these apps. And so I want you to understand what this really means because I know ideally you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds great. What are you talking about? Um, it means the operating system on your phone, which is already tracking everything you do, now also officially knows your age, your identity, and whether you're a minor. Okay. Once this is what I know about the evil world we live in. Once that infrastructure exists, once the verification system is built and normalized, the question becomes what else does it get used for? Use your brains, y'all. What's the biggest issue in our country right now? Trafficking, pedophiles. This is not paranoia. This is how it always goes, the slippery slope. The Patriot Act was passed to stop terrorism. The surveillance infrastructure it built was later used for things that had nothing to do with terrorism. Emergency powers are declared to address a crisis. The powers don't go away when the crisis does. This is the documented pattern of the government overreach. You build the tool for a good reason, and then the tool gets used for whatever reason comes next. I want to protect children online. I also think that's really a parent's responsibility. I also want to exist on the internet without the government having a verified record of every single click I make. Those two things are in direct tension right now and not enough people are talking about it. Ephesians 5:15. Look carefully then how you walk not as unwise but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Making the best use of the time. That means waking up. That means being awake. That means being aware. It means not accepting the first solution offered to a real problem just because the problem is real. The problem can be real and the solution can be wrong. And then this is this is something that I want you guys to hear because it's one of the most underreported political stories in America right now. And it will come in directly to how much power you actually have as a citizen. Which ideally, do we have any? Multiple states are quietly moving to make citizen led ballot initiatives harder to pass. And in case you don't know what this is, and I can even make this nonpartisan, okay? I won't make this a red versus blue thing. Because there's even things I don't believe in that have used this, okay? In case you don't know what the ballot initiative is, it's the mechanism by which regular people, that's us, baby. We the people, that's us, not politicians. We can put a question directly to the voters. If enough citizens sign a petition, a measure goes on the ballot and the people vote on it directly without going through the legislature. It is one of the few remaining tools of direct democracy left in this country. Okay? Legislators are trying to tighten the rules on it. They're increasing the signatures requirements. They're adding procedural hurdles. They're trying to limit the geographic spread of signatures required. Policy trackers are openly saying that state legislatures are moving to curb citizen initiatives after getting, and I'm quoting here, after getting stung by voters. If you're not watching my YouTube video, big air quotes. This is what they said. They're tired of getting stung by voters. I'm going to slow it down, baby, because I want this to click in your dome. Let me say that again. Politicians are making it harder for you to put things to a vote because voters keep bypassing the legislature and passing things the legislatures didn't want. Voters have used these ballot initiatives to pass, Medicaid expansion. I just really got a warning on my video. Wow. Y'all, in case you don't know, I am actually TikTok live as I'm recording this podcast, and I have been put in jail. That like I'm at my 3 strikes soon enough, but it's telling me I'm spreading false information, but this is an actual quote fact check that you can go look up for yourself. It's just not the information that my friendly app who's about to kick me off and probably put me in jail. It's fine. But voters have used the ballot initiatives to pass things like Medicaid expansion or redistricting reform, and even something that I am wholeheartedly against. But I think people have the right. Okay, I everybody gets to vote, right? Uh, Even abortion protections. This is up there. They've used this. Marijuana legalization. That's the people. Voting reforms, that's the people. In multiple states, the response from the legislators who oppose those measures has been not to change their position, but to change the rules so it's harder for voters to circumvent them next time. It's a power grab. I don't care what color your jersey is right now, whether it's red or blue. I don't care. That's a power grab. The people are the check on the government. That's the founding idea of this country. And when the government starts changing the rules to reduce the people's ability to check it out, that's not democracy working. That's democracy getting quietly dismantled at the procedural level while everyone is looking at the presidential drama, right? We have a whole party who is like, democracy is at stake. You're right, but you're focused on the wrong stuff. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. You're being a useful idiot. Yes, democracy, there's an issue with it right now, but it's not in the White House. This is in your home state. This is in your backyard. This is in your small towns. This is where the real fight is. This is where your voice matters in a way that it actually changes the outcomes. Your city council, your state rep, your state senator. These are the people who are deciding right now whether you could put something to a vote in 2027, and most people don't even know their names. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. That is Proverbs. You are meant to be involved, not just in the presidential election every 4 years. Womp womp. That is the least impactful thing in your home. Who the president is the very last thing that will ever touch your life. I survived Biden. Okay? I'm telling you, who the president is the last thing that's going to touch your life firsthand. You are meant to be present at your local level, at the state level, the school board level, because that's where your daily life is actually governed. That's where your kids' curriculum, if you're brave enough to homes to public school, that's where your curriculum is set. That's where your zoning laws are written. Uh, Here's a fun one. State level. Everybody in Michigan is so mad about our gas. Guess what? State level. That's where your gas tax get added on. And while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and mention a few more things happening at the state level that matter and aren't getting nearly enough air. I wonder why. There is a federal bill called the Take It Down Act. It's one of the rare pieces of legislation right now with genuine bipartisan support. The reason is very simple. AI generated, non consensual sexual images, deep fakes of real people, real women, real teenagers are destroying lives. And the legal framework to stop it has barely existed. This bill forces platforms to take that content down and creates real legal exposure for people who create and distribute it. I support this. Protecting people, especially our young ladies, even young fellas, especially minors. It's happening to all of them. From that specific abuse, this is not a controversial position and it shouldn't be. This is something everybody should back up. And then Colorado, my good old home state of Colorado, which has really gone off its rockers far beyond what Michigan has done. They passed something called the Colorado AI Act. It's focused on the algorithmic discrimination. The idea is that if an AI system is making decisions about like your job application, your loan, your healthcare recommendation, your insurance rate, that system can actually be held accountable for discriminate blah, for discriminating on the outcomes. AI is already making these decisions right now, whether you know it or not. The hiring software that screens your resume before a human ever sees it. Also, that banking algorithm that evaluates your credit. You know, the United States holding us to credit when we're the most in debt of anybody I've ever known. These are present realities, and the law is actually catching up. I support the intent of both of these. Very, very not common for me to support what Colorado does, but right now I support that. I'll also tell you to watch who writes the implementation rules. Want you to keep your eyes on who enforces them and what the infrastructure they're building can be used for next, because the road to surveillance is always paved with good intentions. They take advantage of these systems. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open, follow the money. Don't just turn a blind eye. Okay. Speaking of which, I'll just talk about something personal, because sometimes you just have to hear that someone else is living the same reality that you are under the previous administration. Okay, because everybody's freaking out about gas. I I think my record was $111 to fill up my gas tank. $111 for one tank of gas. And I don't drive a semi. I also don't drive a bus. I drive a mom SUV, not a big deal. It's a normal vehicle. $111. And, you know, I remember at that time, just like my jaw on the floor, like that was incredible. This week in Michigan, I got to 104. That's the highest. Okay. For those of you who know Michigan, you know that our governor taxed the ever living hell out of us for years. For years. And people voted for this. I just am like, people voted for this. And then right before she's leaving, she adds another one, a little parting gift, another tax on gas in a state that already has some of the worst roads in the country. And she says, I'm still fixing the roads. Like we all know that's that is not the truth. So I'm paying more for gas on roads I'm paying to not fix. It's incredible. God bless Michigan. And I mean that ironically and also sincerely at the same time. At the same time. So when we're talking about gas prices, if you're in Michigan, you don't get to put a sticker of our president saying I did that. It needs to be Whitmer. Okay? Like that is legit. It needs to be her because she just added that fancy little tax. Probably for a little slush fund that's going to keep her cozy for her retirement or whatever she's going to do. Maybe she's going to run for president. I don't really know. Don't know, don't care. I'm happy to be done with her here. But this is where I want to be very clear about where I stand, because I've had this conversation with people who listen to my show. I support my president. I pray for him, even when I don't understand every decision, even when a number at the gas pump makes me want to have a conversation with God about the specifics. I support the president because I believe in the disruption that he's represented, and because the alternative was not things automatically improve. The alternative was a continuation of a direction that I believe was deliberately wrong for this country. I'll say it every show. I'm going to tell you this every show because y'all think we have some distorted, as a human. I prayed for Biden, prayed for him. That's our job. But the president is not Jesus. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it forever. Our president right now, he's a disruptor. He is a wrecking ball. And is the media going to talk about that? No. Is the news going to talk about that? No. Is your favorite influencer going to talk about that? No. Is even your MAGA turncoat influencer going to talk about it? Absolutely not. But I am telling you, if you go down the rabbit holes and do the research and see what he's really done, he is Cyrus from Isaiah 45. He is an instrument right now, super imperfect. We know he's rough and absolutely not the clean candidate. But again, look at my life. God chose me. God chose me. I am not going to judge what God thinks when he chooses someone else. Sent to knock down the walls, the comfortable and managed person would never touch. And sometimes wrecking balls hit things I don't want knocked over. That's what wrecking balls do. And the question is not whether every swing lands perfectly. The question is whether the overall direction of the demolition is pointed at the things that needed to come down. I believe it is. And I am praying, I will continue to pray that he makes the right calls in the next couple of years. And I'm going to keep saying that out loud, even when the pump makes me want to scream. Okay? And let's just move into here, because I think this is something I genuinely think people are completely misunderstanding about the media problem too. Because when people say they don't trust the media anymore, the conversation usually goes one of two ways. It's either the media is biased, which is true, but it's not the whole story, or the media is controlled, which is also true, but still not the whole story. And this is the part I don't think like we're making clear. The problem isn't just that the media lies. I think the problem now is that AI has now made it so that you cannot trust your own perception of what is real. And those have become two different problems. And the second one, honestly, is more dangerous. When the media lies about something, there is, in theory, a path to the truth. When the media lies about something, I will dig and dig and dig. And pretty much every time they open their mouth, I'm digging. I'm digging. You can find the primary source. You can cross reference. You can read the actual transcripts. You can find the original studies. I mean, you could track down court documents. The lie can be disproven because reality still exists somewhere underneath it. You could dig to it. Now, what AI has introduced is something entirely different. I love that I'm having this conversation um about AI tonight, because I'm going to a summit for the next 3 days for using AI in your business. So, I mean, the contradiction, it's the irony. Is it an irony? AI can now generate videos of a real person, a real living named person saying something that they never said in their real voice, with their real face, with their real mannerisms. I mean, they're calling family members and they're like pretending to be someone's son and asking for a bunch of money. And people are falling for this. It's really happening. Um, it's the lie doesn't just sit on top of reality anymore. It looks identical to it. And I want you guys just to think about what that really means. For the entirety of human history, there has been a basic agreement about how we know things. I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. Like, that's how we knew, right? I saw that. That was the gold standard of personal knowledge. Eyewitness testimony, footage, audio, these were the tools of accountability, the things you could paint to and say, this is what actually happened. AI is dismantling that contract, and it's not slow. I'm saying it is happening right now at scale. But this does get a little bit darker, because it's not just the deep fakes you can see, it's the synthetic consensus that you can't. Right now, on every major platform, there are automated systems, bot forms, AI generated accounts, engagement manipulation tools designed to manufacture the appearance of agreement, the appearance of groundswell, the appearance of movement. You see 20 people in your comments saying the same thing, and your brain registers 20 people agree. This must be real. Except, babe, that's not 20 people. They're 20 outputs from the same AI model posting from different accounts with different profile pictures generated by a different AI. Have you seen the phone farms? That's a real thing, with different posting histories created by yet another AI. And your brain, our brains, you guys, if you follow my Listen Bitch podcast, I talk about our brains a lot. Your brain, which is designed to read community consensus as a signal of truth, it responds exactly the way it was engineered to respond. This is documented. This is happening right now on every single platform that you use. This is why you you guys, I am an advocate for you having a podcast. This is why I'm telling you that the greatest platform you can ever use right now is your voice in a podcast show. And this is why every single day I wake up, I'm going to find the people that need to have their own show and I'm going to help them launch it. Okay. I literally help people start podcasts for free because I had a friend help me. Here I am, 600 plus episodes later, 3 years later, crushing it as the voice authority. Have a podcast. People are going to crave humanity. Like you, AI cannot fake my energy. It cannot fake my expressions. It cannot fake my words. It cannot take over the podcast space. Your story, your voice matters in a world that is really being absorbed in fake. And then people wonder why they feel crazy, right? Like nothing feels solid sometimes. And this is why they read 10 things about the same event and walk away more confused than when they started. Why we can say, I don't know what to believe anymore. How long have we said that? We've been saying that for decades. I don't know what to believe anymore. It has literally become the most common sentence in the American vocabulary. I don't know what to believe anymore. And babe, you are not crazy. You are a human brain navigating an environment specifically designed. It's not accidentally, not as a side effect, but deliberately to make it impossible for you to distinguish the signal from noise. 2 Corinthians says to take every thought captive. Take every thought captive. And I think that has always been a spiritual instruction about guarding your mind from the demons. But right now, I'm reading it as practically literal. Every thought, every video you watch, every trend you notice, every consensus you observe, take it captive. Run it through something other than the algorithm. Ask, who benefits from you believing this? I mean, that should be you questioning yourself with every thought, every action you have. Like, who benefits from me believing this? And then ask what emotional response it's triggering and whether that response is proportionate to the actual evidence. Because the weapon being used against you is not just false information, it's your own nervous system. They have learned to hack the hardware. And the defense against that is not smarter fact checking. It is a mind anchored in something the algorithm cannot reach. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Guard your minds. Not that you'll never be confused, not that the world stops being noisy, but that there is groundedness available to you that the synthetic world cannot manufacture and the algorithm cannot touch it. Can I shift gears on the show? Because it's my show and I could do whatever I want. And I kind of been sitting on this for a while. I feel like when I first launched this podcast, Faith and Fire, um, things looked different, right? I had a co-host. Everything was a little bit different. But I had questions. And I'm just going to kind of bring it out front because the question still lingers. In fact, when my husband tells me about his day, some of my favorite conversations are because he works with a fella, very smart fella, who always talks about Q. And I was so curious. I'm asking all these questions. I'm like, what is this, right? I'm not a follower. I never really went down the rabbit hole. I did look down the rabbit hole. I've glanced. I'm curious, but I didn't sell out. Much like, I haven't sold out for a lot of things. Like y'all are still stuck in this Candace and Erica issue. Never bought onto that stuff either. None of that stuff. I see the mass, I see the stage, like I'm over all that, right? I don't believe that JFK Jr. is alive hiding at a stadium, okay? But it would be I see why they want to. I don't believe every politician is wearing an ankle monitor. I do think maybe not every. I don't follow the drops. Okay, that's what they call it, the Q drops. I don't know if you guys know. I don't decode the numbers. They have a whole thing here, and I'm not telling you any anonymous internet figure is a prophet, but the mainstream dismissal of everything that Q pointed to as pure delusion, I just want to say, like, it's not really holding up very well anymore. I'm saying that it's the truth. It's not. And I think we need to have an honest conversation about what was worth paying attention to underneath all of the noise, right? So I follow I pulled a few strings today. I pulled some strings. Q said there was a coordinated deep state operating against the will of the American people. Okay. Uh, the media called that insane. And then we got the Durham report, right? Right? Then we got the declassified impeachment documents that Tulsi Gabbard released, showing exactly what levels of coordination existed between intelligence agencies and the narrative being sold to the American public. Like, you don't have to believe every Q post to look at these documents and say something was coordinated. Something was not what we were told it was, right? Q pointed relentlessly at Epstein, at elite trafficking networks, at Maxwell. It said, follow the names, follow the money. And the mainstream media laughed at us. Everybody called it insane. They called it dangerous. They banned people for saying it. They've had these Epstein files for how many years? 2 decades, at least 2 decades. Okay. They banned people for saying this. And then Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and his girl, Maxwell, convicted of trafficking, sitting in federal prison right now. The flight logs exist. The island exists. The victims are real. Real women, real girls, real children, and the list of names attached to that operation represents some of the most powerful, most celebrated, most protected people on the planet. I've learned from a lot of podcast conversations, podcast interviews, how money does buy you everything: status, protection. Child trafficking is not a conspiracy theory. It is one of the most evil and most underreported pandemics happening in the world right now. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children handles millions of reports annually. Millions. Not just a few, babe. While we argue about pronouns and award shows and whether a celebrity wore the right thing, children are being sold. Children are being used, and the people doing it have money and lawyers and connections, and they've been protected by the very institution that was supposed to be stopping them. No one gets access to our kids. No one. Not through trafficking networks, not through ideology being pushed in classrooms, not through groomers hiding behind progressive language, not through apps designed to isolate children from their parents. No one. And if that makes me radical, I wear that hat every single day for the rest of my life. Very simple. Documents are still being unsealed slowly with like a lot of redactions. Just last week, a judge unsealed what's being called an alleged Epstein suicide. Now, I told you guys about that. And the internet did exactly what the internet always does, because people fundamentally do not believe the official story. And honestly, given everything we now know is verified and confirmed, of course we can see why. Q talked about the weaponization of public health. You know, on the string I pulled today, they talked about Fauci specifically. Specifically. And I am very disappointed that he uh, did not get arrested. They talk about his relationship with the NIH, about certain research programs, about gain of function. Mainstream media called that insane. Insane. Then Fauci and Morens were indicted. The gain of function research was confirmed. Echo Health Alliance funding was confirmed. The very things that got people permanently banned. I mean, the Facebook jail. I have PTSD from social media jail. All of these things, everything's confirmed in subsequent reporting. It's confirmed. The SPLC, I talked about that. The organization that had been used for years as, of who is and isn't an extremist. The organization that legacy media quoted constantly to delegitimize conservative and Christian voices was indicted for funding the Ku Klux Klan. The organization that called everyone else a hate group was funding actual historically racist domestic terrorism. I genuinely couldn't even make that up. And I'm a writer. I like fiction. Babe, I couldn't have written that, right? Q said the media was scripted and coordinated. And then we watched, and I covered this on the show, 22 United States senators read from what appeared to be the same script, not similar talking points, the same script, word for word, same day, different networks. What? And this is the thing, you know, there's a difference between saying Q pointed to real corruption that is now being confirmed and Q was right about everything. I'm not going to say they're right about everything. The predictions about mass arrests, I haven't seen that. and they suggested that. So it's a little disappointing, right? The JFK Jr. thing, like, I know a lot of people got their hopes up for that, you know? I mean, everybody that's dead, I feel like everybody's like they're not really dead. Everybody thinks that the celebrity's not really dead or this person's not really dead. People die. Babe, that's in the Bible. Like, we don't get to live forever. We're in meat suits. We're meat suits. But there's claims about certain people that turned out to be incredibly fabricated and caused harm to people. Um, or, listen to me, like the truth that's out and everybody just laughs off Pizzagate, ha ha ha. Everybody, it's just we all know now, and so what do we do? Nothing. But I do think that there is a version of this worth understanding, and not as a prophecy, but like I want you guys, what you can get from this specific podcast I run is to see pattern recognition. Somebody was paying very close attention to the actual movements of money and power. There was someone that was watching who flew where with who. They were tracking the funding of organizations nobody else was tracking. They were asking the questions about gain of function research years before most people even knew what that term was. I mean, when did you learn about gain of function? Some of those questions, not all of them, but some of them turned out to be the right questions. Ultimately, what Q was describing, I'm going to be honest, the Bible did it first. The Bible described it first. In Ephesians 6:12, for we do not wrestle against the flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is scripture. The Bible specifically tells us that power is not always what it appears to be, that there are forces operating at levels of government and influence that are not accountable to the people they claim to serve. The underlying recognition that powerful people do corrupt things and protect each other, and that institutions designed to stop them are often compromised. That is not a crazy idea. That's an observation the entire history of civilization supports. And right now, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, the entrenched institutional resistance, the people who built their careers inside agencies and media structures over decades, they're scrambling. They're losing their ever loving minds. Watch what happens when a president actually tries to move things. Watch the coordinated resistance from within these agencies. Watch the intelligence community fight publicly over who controls AI oversight. You don't think that's happening? Because it is. And it's not because they care about AI ethics, but because AI is the next information control mechanism and they want to be the ones holding the switch. Watch the way certain stories get buried and certain stories get amplified and ask yourself who decides? What do they have to lose if the information environment becomes genuinely free? The deep state is not a shadowy room full of headed figures. It is something far more mundane and far more dangerous. It's institutional inertia. It's a network of people whose careers, whose pensions, whose power, whose reputations are all tied to the continuation of a particular arrangement. And when someone walks in and starts kicking over the furniture, these people do not fold their hands and go home. This is what we're watching. We're watching the scramble. And even, a president with all the flaws, all the moments where I separate my support for the disruption from my discomfort with specific execution, he's making the scramble visible in a way that's never happened before in my lifetime. Stuff we're witnessing is incredible. Just by refusing to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, he has forced the system to reveal the lengths it will go to protect itself. We are seeing that. And that revelation, the system showing its hand, is more valuable than almost anything a political movement could manufacture. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. The hidden things are coming into the light. Not all at once, not on a neat timeline, not the way we wanted, not in the way that Q predicted, but piece by piece, document by document, indictment by indictment, the architecture of corruption that seemed permanent is showing its cracks. And before I turn the corner, let's give you a quick update on something I tracked on the show before because the situation has changed significantly. I did a show about the missing scientists. I gave you those names earlier in an episode, the pattern of aerospace and nuclear researchers dying and going missing at the time it was circulating in alternative media and congressional corners, okay? Here's the update. The FBI has officially announced it is leading an investigation to look for connections between the cases. The House Oversight Committee opened a formal probe. The White House press secretary addressed it from the podium, and we're doing it. We're doing the thing. A retired Air Force Major General named McCausland or something like that left his New Mexico home with only his boots and a handgun. No phone, no glasses, no car, still missing. Monica Riza, she was the aerospace engineer, 37 years at one of the most sensitive propulsion labs in the country. Vanished 30 feet from her hiking companion. Um, like what people talk about the rapture. There 1 minute, poof, gone the next, right? We've got the plasma physicist Amy Eskridge studying anti-gravity technology, who said publicly before death that if she ever died by suicide, it would not be true. Um, isn't that odd that these public profiles all make it very clear to claim that they did not commit suicide, but they all died by suicide? That's so interesting to me. James Moffat, the NASA veteran who flew on 14 space shuttle missions, died in a plane crash with his wife and sons. So, yeah, the FBI is now officially asking the questions. Are these cases connected? When fringe becomes federal investigation, you're allowed to pay attention without being called a conspiracy theorist. So I say keep your eyes on this one because it's not done developing. Um, and I feel like I'm going to give you guys a little lesson here. Take you somewhere that I think is going to shift the way you process everything I've been talking about today. Because all of these things, like the state power grabs, the synthetic media, reality, the deep state, scrambling, missing scientists, there's a shape. They all have a shape. And that shape has a name. It's called a Black Swan. This phrase was coined by a philosopher and risk analyst named Nassim Nicholas Taleb. You guys know my enunciation. I don't know. A Black Swan event meets three criteria. First, it is a complete outlier. Nothing in the observable past convincingly points to it as possible. Second, when it hits, the impact is massive. Third, after it happens, everyone tells a story about why they should have seen it coming. I would say Black Swan, September 11th, COVID, the 2008 financial collapse. Nobody at the institutional level was genuinely prepared. The world changed literally overnight. With months, everyone had a tidy explanation for why it was obvious all along. That is the Black Swan. But I want you to understand, Taleb did not invent the concept. Okay? He named it because God has been writing black swans into human history since Genesis. And once you see the pattern, again, we watch the pattern. We're going to watch the pattern. Once you see it in scripture, you can't unsee it. Noah, Genesis 6 and 7, the world is moving. People are eating, drinking, building, marrying. Life is happening. One man is told by God that something is coming that has never come before. No precedent, no reference point, no model that would have predicted it. The people watching him build a boat in dry land thought he had completely lost his mind because nothing in their observable reality made it make sense. And then all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were open. Fountains of the great deep. Y'all, we're not talking about a rainstorm. Windows of heaven? This was geological, catastrophic in a way that has never been witnessed in human history. A black swan so total it reset the entire planet, and the only people who survived were the ones who trusted the warning before there was any evidence that the warning was necessary. Babylon? Daniel. The greatest empire in the ancient world, with walls so thick that two chariots could race side by side across the top. Belshazzar, the king, throws a party. He is toasting with goblets stolen from the temple of God. He has no fear. His city, impenetrable. His empire is forever. Then the Medes and the Persians diverted the river running under the city walls, walked in through the dry riverbed, and took everything. One night, y'all. One night, the most powerful empire in the ancient world fell before sunrise. Nobody had a plan for it. It was the event that looked impossible right until the moment it wasn't. And then I think even the crucifixion falls into this. Follow me here, because I think people who grew up in church sometimes move past this way too fast. It's my little soft Christians. I love y'all, but you got to get a backbone. Disciples scattered. The women wept. The people who had walked with Jesus for 3 years watched what looked like total permanent defeat. Rome was the most sophisticated execution machine the ancient world had ever produced. Crucifixion was designed not just to kill, but to erase, to make the example so public and so brutal that no one would dare follow in that direction ever again. Saturday looked like the end. And Sunday morning, the most consequential black swan in the history of the world, the thing that looked impossible, the thing that nobody had a framework for, the event that rewrites everything. He's not here, he's risen. When I say black swan, I want you to hear God has been the business of black swan events since before civilization. The thing that looks impossible right until it isn't. The thing that changes everything in a single moment. The thing that only the people who are anchored are going to survive. And now look at what is sitting on the table right now. The Strait of Hormuz still. I already taught you the mechanics of this. 20% of the world's oil moving through a 21-mile channel, the petrodollar system. The 2.6 billion in trades placed minutes before the announcements. You have all that information, but what I want you to name today is the black swan underneath it. That strait is one miscalculation, one escalation that goes one step further than the last, away from a closure that would not just spike gas prices, but deliver a supply shock to the global economy to the likes of which we have not seen in modern history. That's a black swan candidate sitting in plain sight, partially visible, largely ignored, while the camera keeps pointing at everything else. Like, you guys are really still talking about celebrity dresses or relationships and the AI reality breakdown, y'all. Um, the one I just described, this synthetic consensus, the manufactured groundswell, the deep fakes that look exactly like reality. The moment the entire information ecosystem becomes untethered from verifiable truth to its own black swan. Not because one event's going to tip it over, but because there is a threshold of which enough people stop agreeing on basic facts that civilization becomes ungovernable. And we're moving toward that threshold faster than anyone in power wants to acknowledge. Revelation 18 describes the fall of Babylon, and one of the things specifically judged is the merchant class, the people who grew up wealthy off corrupt commerce. Um, it's verse 17, for in a single hour, all of that wrath um, has been laid waste. Ships at sea, wealth built on maritime trade routes, laid waste in a single hour. For in a single hour, all of this wealth has been laid waste. God has always known that empires built on the assumption of permanent commercial flow are one disruption away from collapse. Just one. The assumption of stability is the seed of fragility. The black swan is not a scare tactic. We're not fear mongering here. It is a call to be the person who is grounded when the ungrounded get swept away. You hear me? This is not a scare tactic. It is a call to be the person who is grounded when the ungrounded get swept away. And where we are culturally, because I think it's hopeful, and I want to end in that direction before I get to the thing that I'm to the last thing. The polished is dying. The overproduced, perfectly lit, scripted every second, brand safe, corporate approved content that dominated the last decade of the internet, it is losing its grip on the culture. People are exhausted by it. They feel the falseness of it even when they can't put a finger on it. The algorithm rewards it financially, but the trust, the actual human resonance is going somewhere else. It's going to the messy. It's going to the real. It's going to the person who sits down and talks like talks to you like you're a human being who is actually living through this and hasn't figured it all out yet. And the more fake that the internet gets, the more valuable that real voices become. That is why, again, I want to say this. I'm going to say this in every episode I do for all three of my shows. This is why podcasting keeps growing. And it's not because it's technologically impressive. It's not. I'm one person with a microphone and the courage to say stuff. That is what people are starving for. And your people are not my people. I can't talk to them. You're the only voice that's ever going to reach them. But they need you because they can feel the difference between presence and performance. And you're listening to this right now. You're here because something in you is hungry for something real. And I honor that. I love you guys so much for being a part of me with this show, especially through the rocky moments and just giving me that what is it? The strength to keep doing it and the withal to show up. I love you guys for that. Um but it's also important that you're using your own voice. That you are finding space to speak your truth. Our truth may not align. I respect that. I honor that. Your story still matters. What you go through matters. What you have to say to the world matters. What you've been through, your mess is your message. All of that matters. I just want to plant that seed within you tonight because I think you should be thinking about who you want to be in the next couple of years when the AI hits the fan. You know, the world is chaotic. It is. It's chaotic. I know that. I covered a lot of ground today, and this is the thing. I'm going to say this. You do not get to use the state of the world as the reason to stay stuck or to stay quiet. I know how that lands. I say it because I've done it myself. I know what it looks like to be so deep in the research, so buried in the bad news, so genuinely burdened by what you're learning that you stop moving. You stop building. You stop working on the thing that God put in you to work on. And then you tell yourself it's not avoidance, awareness. It's just awareness. You tell yourself you can't focus right now because the world is too chaotic. You can't start the show. You can't finish writing your book. You can't have the conversation. You can't make the changes because look at everything that's happening. That is the oldest trick in the devil's playbook. Make you so heavy with the weight of what you cannot control that you stop moving in the direction of what you can. There's nothing I talked about today that you can't use as a launching starting point to improve your life. We should care about the policies that are close to home. And the last person that is ever going to affect your life is the president. And I see so many people just giving their life over that. Like it is their every waking moment, the reason for all the hate and the vitriol. It's mind blowing to me. A lot of people have been president I didn't vote for, and the world didn't implode. It didn't affect who I was as a mom. It didn't show up in my voice or my mission. God's going to use you. You guys know Paul? My guy Paul wrote from prison. Testimony from prison. Ruth rebuilt from devastation. Esther moved from captivity. David wrote the Psalms while running for his life. None of them waited for the world to settle down. The world never settles down. It doesn't. If it's not this, it's something else. And should you have the awareness? Absolutely. Should you use your voice? Absolutely. Do you think this stuff rules my life? No, I just know where to keep my eyes. I know where to watch. I've seen behind the curtain. I know what's fake. I know what matters. Our state level matters. Our community level matters. These things matter. The world is never going to settle down on a schedule that makes obedience convenient. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and hope. He said that to people in exile. He did not say, not when things calm down, not when the political environment is favorable, in exile, in the middle of it. Your calling doesn't have a waiting room. Your potential doesn't expire when the news gets bad. The chaos is your reason to move, not your permission to freeze. Get your house in order because you are a steward of something specific and irreplaceable. The life and the voice of the story and the gifts that God put inside you and nobody else. You were chosen for such a time as this. A world drowning in synthetic content and manufactured reality desperately needs the one thing no algorithm can generate, and that is you. And to the person who has been circling this for a while, who keeps coming back because something in this is reaching you, something that you don't have a clean category for. I know what it's like to feel like the world is a house of mirrors where you can't tell what's real. You can't tell who to trust. You don't know what's actually happening versus what they want you to believe is happening. And I know how exhausting that is. And I want to offer you the only thing that I have found that actually holds weight in the middle of everything, of all of this. John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, and the life. Not a truth, not one option among many, the truth in the most information saturated, truth deprived, synthetic reality producing moment in human history. He called himself the truth. And he walked into the most corrupt, most controlled political and religious system of his era, and he told the truth anyway. He sat with the people the system had discarded. He called out the religious establishment for performing righteousness while their hearts were empty. He died for it. And then he didn't stay dead. If you have never made the decision to give your life to him, I'm not asking you to walk on an aisle or repeat a rote prayer. I'm asking you to just be honest, to say even just to yourself right now, I cannot navigate this alone. I need something that doesn't move. I want the truth. And he will meet you there. He always does. Matthew 11:28, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The offer has not expired. It does not require a polished version of you. It requires the real version of you. Trust me, with every mission I steward, with every episode I have, with every show I have, with every client I get to meet, every interview I have, I'm like, God, why me? Are you sure about me? Are you sure about me? And every single time it's a yes. Take another step. Take another step. When I'm not sure, he is. And that's all I've ever needed. That's all I've ever needed. The real power in this country is not in Washington. It's in your state house. It's in your city council, your school board meetings. Know your reps' names. Watch what they're building because the infrastructure of digital identity and the algorithm control is being laid right now at the state level, and a lot of people aren't watching. I just want you to watch it. Ask the questions. Ask questions. That's your right. The media problem is not just bias, okay? AI has broken the contract. The basic human agreement that seeing something means it happened. Take every thought captive. Your anchor cannot be the platform. The deep state, all the scrambling, not mythology. Q pointed some stuff out. It's a lot of things are being confirmed. The Bible described coordinated evil in high places long before any internet forum came up with it. Watch the federal investigation on the scientists. Y'all, the Black Swan is real and it's biblical. God's been writing them into history since Noah. The people who are grounded don't get swept away when it hits. I'm just saying be grounded. And you, specifically you do not get to use the chaos as an excuse to stand still. Your house needs to be in order. Your calling needs to be moving, and the world needs what you carry. The world needs what you carry. Faith, fire, God, country, in that order always. I love you guys. I'll see you Thursday.